I'm very optimistic about the future and how technology can affect the future. It's not easy, but it's something you can channel and build incredible things. And as an engineer, you've not experienced a blank slate, real world impact, and complete ownership until you've started a company.
Imagine a world where 90% of our stuff sails across oceans on vessels with no fuel and no crew. Today, I'm out in the beautiful, sunny Redwood City in California, on my way to visit the folks at Clippership, a company working on ocean freight transport. It's an early-stage, small-scale outfit led by the Cymbalist brothers, but like the very best of deep tech startups, they are aiming for global-scale, foundational impact, with the goal of shaking up the shipping industry with a mode of transport that they claim is more sustainable, more flexible, and more affordable. We'll hear from Nico, Clippership's CEO, about their tech, about their company story, and how their wind-powered autonomous boats could halve costs and reshape global trade. But first, as always, I'm keen to go back to the early days and find out where the dream really began.
I grew up on a farm, and farms are full of lots of junk around farms, right? Which is great because you can assemble this junk into boats. Started off as just like sketching boat designs. I was 7, but turned to prototyping shortly thereafter. And to be clear, like these were boats that like my 4 brothers and I would ride around on the pond. Very, very dangerous. Like, come home from school, it's like, all right, let's go make some boats. So that was like my childhood. Some people's first love is rockets, like mine was boats. I went to grad school, aerospace, aeronautics, but stayed a sailor sort of as a hobby. Career kind of led me elsewhere, and I spent time in motorsport, automotive. At Tesla, I was in the new programs group, the group that sort of builds all the very, very, very early prototypes and concepts. Typically, like Elon would tweet about something that he wanted to see, and if it was crazy enough, it would kind of fall into my desk, and I would have to build it. So that was my job. I was like, just build these kind of like fairly wild concepts. Very few of my things ever make it into the product pipeline because the things that I worked on were like typically quite crazy. And that was awesome. Like I loved it. For an engineer, it's great. But of course, like you can only go through so many iterations of building this amazing thing that will never make it into the real world before thinking about, okay, maybe I want to build something that's actually gonna, move the needle. And then through 50/50 really, kind of came back to really the original reason why I became an engineer at all, which was to build boats.
The more I've been learning about deep tech, the more I'm fascinated by the early decisions that shape a company's journey, and how so much of that comes down to the foresight, the kind of conviction and fearlessness of founders as they navigate that early idea maze. How quickly do you get lost? Or maybe go down the wrong path? Do you decide to pivot and improve ideas and eventually hone in on the one that's best for your business? Because let's face it, great engineers can build almost anything, right? But turning a prototype into a business is a whole different puzzle. So I asked Nico, how did he evolve from workshop bench expertise towards founder conviction? And I think his answer reveals a mindset shift that every technical founder needs.
I went on paternity leave at the beginning of last year, actually, while sitting on the couch with a newborn. And I was like, okay, I'm probably not gonna have time to do this at any other time than right now. The idea I started with was, okay, let's charge more for something that's sustainable. And that was quickly shut down. Like, something that's sustainable but worse, that's just simply not the way to go. The sort of change in focus happening during 50/50, actually during conversation with Scott. I was back at Tesla at that point, so I would work on this typically at night, and by let's say 1 o'clock, I'd send this to Scott. Scott would look at it early in the morning, get back to me, think about it during the day. I think it was a pretty quick iteration loop, prototype, build stuff, learn, build, learn. It changed the approach from build this incredible technology to more of like figuring out how to cost cut, right? We have to offer this service that is better than the competition, but is also way cheaper than the competition. If you have a container ship, the steel itself, like the body of the ship itself is fairly cheap to build on a sort of per unit cargo basis, but you have to operate that thing for 10 years, right? The amount of money you spend on fuel for 10 years dwarfs the initial sort of capex that you spend on building the boat out. Let's start deleting items, right? Let's delete fuel, right? That's like huge, right? Let's delete crew, like that's pretty cool. And now you're left with capex, and that's now the focus of the engineering to the level where this can be a very viable business undercutting the competition by 50%. Particularly with sort of prototype level engineering, you're dealing with a ton of uncertainty, right? The engineering skill set is fairly useful because it sort of helps you distinguish the signal from the noise. Confirmation there that this is really something that is worth going for me was like the deciding factor. Like I knew I wanted to do it, I just needed like that validation. It's like, yeah, this is the right thing to do.
So conviction and solid techno-economics are vital. But another big hurdle comes into focus when you zoom out. Timing. Where does your idea fall along the evolution of an industry as a whole? Are you too late? Maybe too early? So many ambitious companies seem to fail because they don't consider this carefully enough. And obviously, if you're going to try and disrupt a $400 billion a year shipping industry, it'll probably take more than just a clever sail design. I asked Nico how he thinks about market opportunity and trends he's identified, and how he's very intentionally mapped Clippership onto shipping's next exponential curve of progress.
Trade is the lifeblood of modern civilization, right? 90% of everything you see is moved on a ship. But maritime shipping is an industry that hasn't changed in 70 years. The technology is old and antiquated, and we're trying to upgrade that technology. The phase of sailing vessels back in the 19th century eventually was completely replaced by the age of steam, and we think that the age of autonomous wind-powered vessels is just starting now. Even just since we started the company, the number of boats on the water carrying cargo that are wind-powered has tripled in like 8 months. So really the emphasis has to be, okay, how do you reduce the cost of wind-powered vessels to the point where it's actually competing with and accessing, therefore, the sort of mass transport container market? In about 25 years, because of, first of all, rising fuel costs, and because people are now switching out your traditional sort of heavy oil bunker fuel for hydrogen-based fuels, the cost of shipping something is going to dramatically increase, whereas the cost of shipping something by wind and on autonomous will not change. So pretty soon, this is going to be like the way cheaper option. What is exciting me the most about the maritime industry is that it is so ripe for innovation. It's like a powder keg, just waiting to like take on some innovation.
I've been realizing that a company often mirrors its founder's evolution. It's not just about upskilling and pitching or fundraising, which you can hear about from the hundreds of founder podcasts and courses out there. But it's about who you become under pressure and how your principles and your behaviors are reflected in the company itself. This stuff really fascinates me. The internal learnings, the mindset shifts that lay the groundwork for driving success. So I was curious. I asked Nico what has surprised him about his own transformation.
It's a way more sort of personal journey than I had expected before. It's not just your career. It's all-encompassing, really. What was fairly eye-opening is it's way more about who's doing it. You can have a group of people who are like really great founders with a terrible idea, and it doesn't matter because they'll just like switch and make it better, right? But the inverse is not true. The speed, you've not moved fast until you've been in a very, very early stage startup. First of all, it's just so critical, and it's like orders of magnitude higher than what you'd experience even in a fast-moving company. If there's something that has a long lead time to build, everything that goes into it, you just start building at the same time, right? And that's not only technical, right? So everything else, like parallelize customer acquisition, parallelize fundraising, like everything, do it in parallel in a way that everything is ready at the same time. It's like insane speed, insane agency, and just like you care so much more about it than pretty much any other job you've had.
I love that. And I love seeing how comfortable the best founders get with continually like dialing up their speed, their intensity, and their focus. I'm just trying to imagine how much I could unlock in my own life if I started parallelizing everything. I can see it. Nico's vessels, braving the high seas, glinting in the spray, connecting the world together in new ways. I wanted to know what's firing him up. What is next for Clippership?
So we're going to build this fleet out as fast as humanly possible. Total cost of ownership for one single container ship will build you 1,000 Clippership boats. Your standard small shipping company will have like 8 container ships, right? Okay. What if you built 8,000 Clipperships? Cover the Earth with point-to-point transport. That's like very much within the realm of possibility over the next decade or so, which is pretty cool.
Pretty cool indeed. Building thousands of autonomous wind vessels in the next decade sounds bold because there's no way around it. It is bold. But scale is the only way to reshape global trade. And Nico's voyage from farmyard tinkerer to CEO of a fuel-free, crew-free cargo armada reminds us that engineering impact at this level of ambition demands equal parts of conviction, rigorous economics, and relentless speed. But it also makes me wonder, what would the world look like if all the builders, all the scientists, leaned into their true calling? What blank slate would you own if you dared to start your own company today? Something to think about. Until next time.
V0. Let's go V0. Yay!